My name is Joko McKenna. I am an English teacher and an administrator at a school in Mandalay, Myanmar. And I like to help people with their IELTS work in my free time because it does seem like there is a need and not enough instructors, or at least qualified instructors. And so I'm doing this to share specifically what our topic tonight is, which is my favorite topic, part one of the writing task, the writing paper. And I'm using a new little bit of technology to do this. Look at that. This is Zoom. We're in Zoom, so we're actually live. Other people can visit. And it's a new feature called Over PowerPoint. So this is a PowerPoint behind me. And then this is Zoom. So what are we going to talk about? In task one, there are these words. This is a very specific topic. But the reason why it's important is because it falls within the one part of the writing task part one, that seems to give people the most trouble. If we look at IELTS scores worldwide, reading and listening, the average score in the world total, this is from 2018, it's like the last numbers I saw, about 6.1, 6.2. Average score for speaking, about 5.9. But for writing, it's 5.6. So you've got 6.1, 6.1, 5.9, 5.6. Full half band below that. Now, they do not release statistics about which of the band descriptors are causing this drop compared to the other skills. But in my experience online and as an IELTS teacher, the one part of the writing task that gives people the most trouble is task response or task achievement. It's the first of the band descriptors. And if you don't know what I mean by band descriptors, well, you're going to have to start at the beginning. So just as writing causes the biggest problem for people, within the writing category, there is one criteria that causes more problems than the others. Feel free to use the chat function if you have any questions. I actually won't take oral questions, but that should be up right now. First question is if you can hear me okay. I hope my sound is all right. The first column here, 765, these are the band descriptors for task achievement. And if you look, what shows up in 7? Presents a clear overview, an overview, and then here in 5, no overview. So let's really break it down and look at what they mean by a clear overview. Well, means 1, not 2. That's the first thing. That's the most basic. Okay, clear. Now, this causes some confusion because do they mean that the writing needs to be clear? Or is this clearly the overview? Or is the overview someplace else? Does this stand out? Does it actually say that it is the overview by saying things like overall? Now, I think that, of course, everyone should try to write clearly and, of course, show that your overview is your overview by saying it's clearly my overview. By using things like overall. So does it mean one or the other? Not important. Do both. But what about overview? What does it mean? Well, it's one word. I've got it here in my slide as 2, just to be cute. But, all right, an overview is the part of the writing task where you spotlight the main information by selecting key differences, trends, and making comparisons of significance. So you might recognize these words over here. They're similar to what's in the instructions. What's the difference between the goals of the overview and the goals of the task as a whole? Okay? Well, we can talk about that by looking at what goes in an overview and what gets left out. Note, here in bands 5, it says you have no clear overview. Does that mean the overview is not clear? Or that no part of it is an overview? That's, again, up to debate. But why risk it? Write clearly. Oh, there's a button here. Okay, so what belongs in an overview and what does not? You do not want to put all Don't put all of these things in your overview, but if it's not one of these, it doesn't go there. Okay? Trends, differences, and comparisons. Okay. Changes that you can see from the beginning to the end of the time period. Okay. Obvious groupings or categories. Now, I mentioned in the writers in Mr. Patel's first when he posted this online on Facebook, Northern and Southern UK. Do you have to know that Scotland and Northern Ireland are the Northern UK and Wales and England are the Southern UK? No, you don't need to know that. But that's the kind of grouping that I'm talking about, because in that instance, the northern part had low levels of part-time workers, and the southern part had high. And if you can group them together into categories, that will help you describe a broader picture, and that's what you want to do in your overview. You want to describe as much of the important information as you can in as little space as possible. A transition point would be where something changes. It's going up, 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 and then it goes down at a certain point. However, and same thing with totals of like everything in the graph or the chart. However, be cautious with this, because number one item that you want to leave out, that you don't want in your overview, are specific details. Yeah, that would be things like years, specific years, and specific percentages or quantities, or really numbers of any kind. Those are, by definition, details. You can combine things and then report them as numbers, but that does not belong in your overview. Other things that don't belong in your overview. Well, a conclusion doesn't belong in a task 1, unless the conclusion is your overview. Now, then you can have a conclusion. You just don't call it a conclusion. Okay. Now, when we look at the task here tonight, you'll see that it has 8 data points. What is a data point? It's one bit of information on the graphic. Okay? Usually, there's going to be at least 12, 15, 20. I've seen them with 100. But if it's information that regards just one of these data points, it doesn't belong in your overview. Highest and lowest. Now, this is what everyone automatically runs to when in their overview. Just find the highest thing and the lowest thing and report on that. I don't know who's teaching this. Sometimes, very rarely, on occasion, the highest and the lowest might be the most significant feature. It'll probably get you a band 6 as an overview, because it's clearly the overview. It can be clear, but it's not the most important information. And anything not on the graphic, that doesn't belong anywhere in task 1, like opinions. Okay? So this is what you include. This is what you leave out. Include the highest and the lowest. My God, what is he saying? Right there. Highest and lowest. Leave it out. Now, what are we looking at then? Well, okay. So to understand how the overview fits into the writing as a whole, I'm going to take a step back and talk about something I talked about in other videos quite a bit. And that's some instructions that you find on every task 1. Doesn't matter if it's a bar graph or a line chart or a process diagram or a map or a pie chart or any of these things, you'll always find this information here, this sentence. And what does it tell us? It tells us summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Sometimes they include the comma, sometimes this becomes making, but it doesn't matter. Those are the instructions. when you go back and you look at the band descriptors, I could go back, but it'll mess up my recording. You find these words, the requirements of the task, mentioned again and again. Fully satisfies the requirements of the task, covers the requirements of the task, addresses the requirements of the task, does not address the requirement. What do they mean? Well, if we look at the 4 verbs in this instruction, that tells us what they want. Summarize, select, report, and making comparisons. Now, except for reporting, you can do any of these other 3 things. Okay, so not reporting. Reporting is what you do in your body paragraphs. But in your overview, what you really need to do is make it clear that you have selected the main information. Selected the most important information. Okay, once you've done that, then everything is easy. All right. So that's what you're going to be doing. Select the most important information, report that. So here's our question for tonight. The graph below shows the percentage of part-time workers in each country of the UK from 19... Summarize the information. There it is. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make a... Excuse me. From Milan. No, not Italy. From Milan in Cappadocia. I'm not sure where that is, but someplace in India. Studying college at the Renewable Energy and Environmental Engineering College. That's wonderful. High purpose. Happy Earth Day to you, one day late. Now, here's his overview. How do I know it's the overview? Well, it starts with overall. So it at least was intended to be the overview. And what you've done here, if we look at what I say you should and what you shouldn't, what have you done? You've taken the highest and the lowest and tried to squeeze them into your overview somehow. Okay, by saying that it can be clearly seen that the graph percentages of people who worked part-time was highest in Wales, followed by England in 1980 and 2100, whereas proportion lowest. Okay. Now, I hope that the writer can see that that's kind of awkward. It doesn't fit. When I look at this graph, what do I see? Well, I see 2 big ones. Okay. Yeah, highest in 2019, great, and lowest. These are about the same. You got 2 high ones and 2 low ones. Okay. What can we say about England and Wales? Well, they're both in the southern part of the UK. What's in the northern? In Scotland and Northern Ireland are in the northern part of the UK. So even if you don't know that, you can say something like, overall, it can be seen that part-time workers were more common in England and Scotland, England and Wales, and less common in Northern Ireland and Scotland. Or to reverse it, say that there are fewer part-time workers, or a lower percentage of part-time workers in Scotland and Northern than compared to England and Wales. What have you done there? If you do it this way, you've covered everything. Well, covered everything in one sentence. Then you're ideally going to shape your body paragraphs around the overview, which we'll discuss at a later time. Okay, so, all right. But here's the thing, is at the end of your report, you say, to conclude, in all countries, bar Northern Ireland, part-time employment were increased between 1980 and 2010. That's another main feature. Look, it went up, it went up, it went up. Here it went down. That's another way that's the other bit of main information. Okay, you could have included that. This is the kind of information that you put in your conclusion that you should have had, that you, the person, the writer, should have included in their main, in their overview. Okay, there's the essay as a whole. Word count 205. How long did it take to write it? Now, in a moment, we'll look at the essay line by line, and I'm going to explain a bit about the colors. These colors represent the band descriptors, which there's 4 of them, and I won't go through them all, but just to key you in on what the colors mean. Intermission. P1 and P2, paragraph 1 and paragraph 2. In paragraph 1, you want to just restate the question, paraphrasing in your own words what's in the text, and you've done a The writer has done a good job of doing that here. The given bar graph compares the percentage of people who have worked part-time in four, that should be countries of the UK in 1980 and 2010. Yeah, don't be confused by the fact that it's country here. That's a different construction using the word each. So in 4 different countries. Okay. So good job there. And we've talked about this a little bit already, that the overview just kind of goes for the highest and the lowest. Overall, it can be clearly seen that, why do we need from the graph? The number one thing that they ask you to do in this task is to summarize. And summarize means to include to describe the information, the most important information, in as few words as possible. So the words from the graph don't add anything to that sentence. So we know it's the graph. Overall, it can be clearly seen that the percentage of people who worked part-time was highest in Wales. Now, it's blue for referencing. Okay, I might have even made it yellow for vocabulary, because people who... There's someone at my door. Oh my goodness. Hello, can I know? I live upstairs from a catering shop, and so lately they've been bringing me food. Like, oh, we didn't sell this, so here. So we got some samosa, yeah, and some noodles. All right. And 100% halal. Okay. So, back to the show. You've repeated the same words 7 times, and these 7 words are exactly the same 7 words that appeared in the previous paragraph. Don't do that. And this little extra 0 here is a typo, I know. Okay, it's not, you don't think it's the year 20,100, but it's a sign that you haven't proofread your work, because that's the kind of it should be easy to spot that. Why is it an extra 0 in there? So proofread before finishing. You use the word whereas unnecessarily. Okay, you could have started a new sentence. You're going to have plenty of complex sentences later, and what you've done is you've turned this paragraph into one sentence, and it's at least 40 words long. It's way too long for one sentence. And in this position, whereas does not take a comma after it. It does have one before it, but not after it. And proportion is a singular noun, needs whereas the proportion of part-time. Yeah, part-time is spelled correctly here. It needs a hyphen, but I think that was the last time. Oh, there it is. That's the last time you spelled it correctly. It was there. Workers in Scotland. Okay, reported. Did the workers report the information? We'll talk about verb choice here in a little bit. And anytime you have a superlative, like lowest or highest or most or greatest or least, you need the definite article, the, before lowest. Okay. And why is this one 1980 and 2010, and this one just 1980? It kind of, you want your two halves of the sentence to match, to have the same type of information in them. It's called parallelism. Okay, so I think we've already talked about how the most important information is found elsewhere. All right. Okay, did you do this? Trends, differences, and comparisons. No. Beginning to end. No. I mean, what would be an interesting question is, does the number of part-time workers increase overall in all of the countries? All except for one. So another thing you could, that would touch on what we said already. Let's say that overall, the beginning and the end. Yeah. Groupings, categories, no. Correlations. But we do have some specific details in there, like years. That's a detail. Okay. Body paragraph 1. Now, paragraphs should have a central idea or theme which controls them, which tells the reader what this paragraph is about and organizes it into a single topic. And usually that is, or should be, represented by a topic sentence. Topic sentence is something you find in the band descriptors as something you must include to get a high score in coherence and cohesion. And you don't have any topic sentences, at least not in this paragraph. Now, in the first sentence of the previous paragraph, you said, can be seen. And then you start the next one, can be noticed. That type of repetition of structure, it's not good for your vocabulary because it's just you're repeating the same words, and it's not showing a variety of grammar structures. Part-time, again, needs the hyphen. Okay, workers in England. Did England rise? Which rose by 6% in 2010. Now, is that a significant increase? Well, it's debatable, I suppose. It could call it a significant increase, but I don't know. I think I need more for it to be significant. While in Scotland, in the year 1980, just in 1980 is fine, only 11% part-time, needs a hyphen, workers recorded all right, recorded, did they record it? Was lowest amongst all the other countries. Now, when we take what could be two sentences and we combine them together into one sentence using a coordinating conjunction like while, okay, which you did here, yeah, while, to do that, there needs to be a good reason. And like something that contrasts the two sentences, the two clauses as they're called, something that shows how they're different or the same. But here they're just completely about entirely different things. There was a rise. Here it's lowest. There was a rise. There was a fall. That makes sense. There was a rise, and there was another rise. That makes sense. But here, to use a different topic, here Apple sales went up, and here the rain continued. Well, I don't know, but it's not. Those two clauses weren't meant to be connected together. All right. Same thing with however. However represents a contrast between the previous thought and the current thought, or the one that you're introducing. However, the percentage was increased and reached at 9%. Well, I guess you could say it was lowest. However, the percentage increased. Okay? Now, something I could do a whole talk about is transitive and intransitive verbs and how you cannot use intransitive verbs in the passive voice. Now, increase is both transitive and intransitive. But transitive verbs are verbs that take objects. Most verbs are transitive. Yeah? I can increase something. I can go, if I'm a shopkeeper, I can increase my prices. Okay? I can go and change it and make my prices higher. I'm doing the thing. Okay? However, a lot of verbs are intransitive. Ones like happen. Can you happen something? No, things just happen. Rise is a intransitive. The sun rises in the morning. Did someone rise it? No, it just rose, past tense, by itself. Raise is transitive. Yeah? The hand of God raised the sun. Well, anyway, increase and decrease are both. And you can only use the passive voice, as you've done here, was increased with transitive verbs. Okay? The percentage was increased. By who? It wasn't increased by someone. So it's intransitive, and you can't use the passive voice. Instead, the percentage increased. No be in there. No was. Okay? The percentage increased and reached no at in there either. No, reached 19% by 2010, We don't need the year. Okay, that's extra words that are not needed. We know what year we're talking about. In Scotland. Now, once again, you need to summarize. That's the most important. That's the first commandment. Summarize, which means any redundant words. Okay. Any redundant words are going against the idea of summarizing. Here we have in Scotland. And then at the beginning of the sentence, you tell us in Scotland. While in Scotland, in Scotland. So that's bad English to start with. Definitely bad in task 1. And then the next bit. We are supposed to talk about the most important information. The most important information, by definition, does not include ideas like a minor difference of only 2% can be seen. And once again, can be seen. That's what can be noticed. Can be seen, can be noticed. You've done it once. Okay? Using a passive modal, like can and be, is good one time. You do it more than once, you're relying on it. Okay, last slide. Next 2 paragraphs. Northern Ireland was the only exception. Yes, that's what we want to see. Exceptions to the trend. Okay, great. That's why I underlined it and put it in bold. In which the percentage was decreased. Once again, decreased, not was decreased, slightly from 15% in 1980 to 13% in 2010. By this point, we have well established what the years we're talking about are. So you don't need to say those years again. We know when, we know in what countries, so you don't have to repeat them. Okay. Now the last sentence here was really disappointing because what do? You come back and you say the same thing that you said in the previous paragraph, where you told us that England had a rise. England rose by 6%. Okay, oh yeah. Oh, here. Scotland and England witnessed a significant raise, once again, in the percentage of part-time workers. Oh, right, okay. During the given period of time, which was about 5%. Wait a minute, it was 6% in the last paragraph. And do you see how that's repeating yourself? You only state 4 things in the 2 paragraphs. One of them, it tells us about a minor difference that we don't need to report. 2 of them are the same, and 1 of them was good. To conclude, in all countries bar Northern Ireland, part-time employment were increased. That's great. That's what we're looking for. Things that cover all the countries, except 1. That's your lowest. That's your highest. It's your one of a kind. Okay? So this concludes my individual discussion of your body paragraph, of your report. Okay? And I forgot there, you do not write a conclusion. There are no conclusions in task 1. Now, some people like to put their overview at the end. Now, you can do that. I think that it might be helpful sometimes because if you're in a hurry and you don't think about what you're doing before you start doing it, well, you might discover things along the way that are the key information. What's the key information? What's the most important? I don't know. I'll just start writing until I find it. Well, that's not a good approach. But this Northern Ireland thing is something that was discovered as you were writing, I think. And so you put it at the end when you've already found it. However, it is much better to use your overview in the second paragraph, as you've done, which also helps you to control the ideas in the body paragraphs. So an overview should have 2 sentences. Overall, it can be clearly seen that the part-time employee rate was higher in southern parts of UK than the northern. In addition, all of the countries experienced an increase except for Northern Ireland. So now you've got 2 ideas in your overview. Discuss the first idea in the first body paragraph. Discuss the second idea in the second body paragraph. And this gives you a nice natural organization to the task 1 that you can repeat with any type of task 1. It's called Uber cohesion. Okay, so if you that concludes my talk. So if you have any questions, turn on your microphone, turn on your camera, ask away. No, okay.
Response.
Don't worry, you're doing fine. If you'll note some good things, there wasn't a lot of green on here. Okay, you've got good grammar, you've got a good base from which to start. Okay, but it's just some things you need to learn about Task 1, and hopefully I've helped you with that. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Good night.